Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for dialing in to today's BioCelerate webinar on common templates for non-clinical studies. My name is Gloria McHugh. I work for TransCelerate, and I'll be your webinar host today. Today we'll be discussing the launch of Protocol Template version 1 for 28-day repeat dose toxicology studies. The rest of the BioCelerate team that we have on the phone today are Todd Page, Director of Toxicology from Eli Lilly, Jean Scholes, Group Director, Toxicology Outsourcing from BMS, and Kelsey Jakey, Director of the Portfolio for BioCelerate and Principal Consultant at PA Consulting. Again, my name is Gloria McHugh, and I'll be your BioCelerate webinar lead today. Before we get into the content of the webinar, I'd like to cover a few logistics. As you probably heard when you called in, all participants will be muted for today's call. You should be able to listen to the audio using either your computer or your phone. And you can reduce the control panel, the GoToWebinar control panel, for a better view of the presentation by clicking on that orange and white arrow in the top left of the control panel, and that'll slide your control panel over to the right. We'll be using the questions pane for you to submit questions to the presenters today. So please type your question into the box and then be sure to click send in order to submit your question. If you have any feedback or technical issues, please send an email to events@transceleratebiopharmainc.com. We will be using live polling during today's webinar to make sure it's interactive and facilitates sharing of information. So in order to test that out, I'd like to launch our first poll. It is completely voluntary and all responses will be anonymous. Your answers will only be shared as a percentage of the respondents who've totally answered. So I'll go ahead and launch the first poll, and we can test out the functionality and make sure that everyone can hear me okay. So you should be seeing the question on your screen. If you can answer what is your favorite color, and select that answer on your screen. And it looks like we've got about 40% of the people on the phone have voted so far, so thank you very much. Leave that open for a few more seconds. And I'll go ahead and close it. And I will share the results. So it looks like 71% of the people on the phone today, the blue is their favorite color. So thank you very much for responding. We know that everyone can hear us and the functionality is working well. Before we get started, I'd also like to cover some ground rules for TransCelerate. We want to make sure that the discussion is helpful and answer as many questions as we can. A reminder that participation is voluntary, as is using any TransCelerate or BioCelerate asset or tool, and you don't have to identify what company you work for. Specific things that we would ask you not to discuss would be commercial relationships, your long-term development plans, or anything related to costs. And we are not able to answer questions about commercial relationships, costs of using or implementing the TransCelerate or BioCelerate assets or tools, nor which member companies are using any of the assets or tools. We have a variety of folks represented here today on today's call. The types of organizations you can see on the left, you can see that more than about half of the people on the call are representing research sponsors or biopharma companies, and then smaller percentages representing CROs and contract labs, health authorities and regulatory agencies, as well as industry groups and consortiums, other service providers and vendors, and technology vendors. The geographic representation on today's call you can see is the majority from North America and Europe, but we also have some people representing Central, South America, or Caribbean, as well as Asia Pac. So thank you very much to everyone for making time out of your day today to attend the call. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey Jakey. She's the Director of Portfolio for BioCelerate. She'll cover the agenda and get us started. Kelsey?
All right, thank you, Gloria. Appreciate everyone joining the call today. We do have a few topics we wanted to discuss related to the non-clinical protocol template initiative. I'll first give an overview of TransCelerate and BioCelerate for those who are unfamiliar. Then we'll pass it over to our expert presenters today, who will talk through some of the background of the protocol template initiative and also the principles that went into its design. We'll also share how everyone on the call today and all of the organizations represented here today can get involved in the design of the protocol template and future releases. And then we'll close out with some Q&A at the end. So please, if you have questions as we go through the presentation, feel free to use that questions pane to submit a question by writing it in that panel, and we will try to address those questions at the end. Next slide. Okay, so overview of TransCelerate and BioCelerate. So I know some of you may already be familiar with TransCelerate as a consortium, but for those less familiar, TransCelerate is an organization that was formed back in 2012 as a not-for-profit entity, really with the express purpose of fostering collaboration in the biopharmaceutical industry. It currently consists of about 19 member companies who have come together to deliver a pretty wide variety of initiatives across the R&D spectrum, across clinical trials, as well as more recently in the pharmacovigilance space. And this is all with a vision of accelerating and simplifying the delivery, the development of new therapies across industry. And so really with this collaborative spirit in mind, TransCelerate not only is a consortium of biopharma companies, but also has a pretty long history of collaborating with external groups, including health authorities, CROs, sites, and patient groups as well. Some of the strategic goals of TransCelerate have included things like harmonizing process, enabling information and data sharing, and improving the experience of various stakeholders working on R&D, including patients, sites, and CROs, while also enhancing efficiencies at the sponsor level. And so with this sort of framework in mind, back in 2016, TransCelerate decided to spin off a separate subsidiary focused on non-clinical research. Just given the success that TransCelerate had had in the clinical model, BioCelerate was formed to focus on delivering initiatives focused on making non-clinical R&D more efficient. And so BioCelerate's been around. It's now just kicked off its 4th year. And the current members that you see here on this slide, the 5 charter companies, are still very much actively involved in the initiative at BioCelerate. Next slide. So what does BioCelerate focus on today? There are 3 major initiatives that BioCelerate currently has an active delivery to help advance more efficient non-clinical R&D. The first and possibly the most popular one, given how long it's been around since the beginning of BioCelerate, is toxicology and background control data sharing. We're now in delivery and maintenance mode for this initiative, and we have met our objective to deliver and develop a platform called BioCelerate to enable the sharing of de-identified data, of toxicology studies, as well as background control data. And this platform enables not only the sharing of that data, but also the directed search and visualization of that data in an effort to make more data-driven decisions on compound progression. And this is aimed at really improving our understanding of on and off target toxicity. So we are progressing pretty far along with this initiative, having delivered the BioCelerate platform, and we are very steadily increasing the amount of data contributed in this platform. The second major initiative, and the one that we'll focus on mainly today, is common templates for non-clinical studies. And here we have so far delivered the first protocol template for repeat dose tox studies. And the goal of this template, and also of the other common templates that we plan to deliver in the future, is really to make lives easier for sponsors, CROs, and others working in the non-clinical research realm, putting forth templates that help to create greater consistencies for the sake of efficiency, reduction of error, and ultimately improved quality in how we execute and interpret non-clinical studies. So we'll focus a little bit more on that today. The third initiative is on SEND. So the CETA SEND standard, of course, is growing in adoption across industry. This is the primary format for the sharing and exchange of non-clinical data from studies. However, its use and implementation has been a bit inconsistent. And so what this team is doing is looking at what the various implementation variabilities of SEND look like across different SEND data sources, and in an effort to facilitate more consistent implementation so that companies who do produce SEND data sets can actually more effectively share and analyze them across various data set sources. So this is a really exciting initiative that's pretty complementary to our other two, and we're eager to share a little bit more about this. We'll actually be launching this initiative next week in a following webinar from BioCelerate. So more to come on that. But that basically covers at a high level the primary work that BioCelerate is focused on today. And as I mentioned, we'll focus mainly on that middle bucket there on common templates. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Todd Page to take us through the background for that initiative.
Well, thank you very much, Kelsey, and thank you all for joining us today. So as Kelsey mentioned, I'm Todd Page. I'm a director of toxicology at Eli Lilly. I'm a work stream lead for this BioCelerate initiative. And I think many of you, may be asking yourselves the question, why are we doing this? And at a basic level, if you can go to the next slide, Gloria. At a basic level, we on the BioCelerate team had a hypothesis. And our hypothesis was that if we could come up with a widely adopted protocol template that was used by CROs, used by pharma companies, that this template would drive efficiency across the industry. So it would decrease the time to start a study. It may have an impact on cost. We certainly think that a standard template would decrease errors. It would also improve study quality. And so through these things, then it's going to be more efficient to conduct a toxicology study, ultimately getting medicines to patients more quickly. So that was our hypothesis when we started this. As part of our data gathering and hypothesis testing, we wanted to get impact from key stakeholders, right? Because we acknowledge that, the BioCelerate team is made up primarily of pharma companies. And so we did an effort to reach out to various stakeholders. And if you advance the slide, please, Gloria. This is just sort of a snapshot of some of the feedback we received. And these are direct quotes from people that we actually interviewed, as we were gathering information on this project. And I'm not going to read all of these in detail, but at the level of a research scientist, again, the person that we talked to felt that this is really going to help them in that when they're managing multiple studies, it'll make their life easier because every protocol will be the same or similar. They'll always know where to look. It'll enable cross-study analysis. Importantly, we also talked to CROs. CROs uniformly saw the value in this. Again, it's about quality. So you think about, as a laboratory technician, someone actually doing this work. If they know where in a protocol they need to go to get the key information they need to do their job, and it's in the same place every time, that's going to improve quality. That's going to decrease errors. It also makes it easier for some of these CROs to be more responsive to clients and again, more efficient and decreasing time. Another CRO suggested that if we can, get this implemented at a protocol perspective, hopefully in the future, it can contribute to faster reporting timelines. And in fact, that is our long-term goal, is to take, this standardized protocol template and then also have a companion report template so that, you almost have a tox study ecosystem, right, where it goes from protocol to reporting. And then, in a few years, hopefully that might facilitate, some additional automation of writing reports even. Notably also, I think health authorities, were also supportive of this initiative, the ones that we talked to at least. And again, I think there that you have to realize that these are folks that, review multiple studies from numerous different sponsors and numerous different CROs. And so if you can envision, a world where there's some consistency in what a 28-day study protocol looks like, it would certainly make their lives a lot easier. So if we go to the next slide, just to kind of now reiterate on what some of these benefits are. And I will say, I think what's really been rewarding to me to work on this project is that this is an initiative that's a win-win for multiple stakeholders. And so that's part of the challenge, actually, is getting this implemented. And I think one of the reasons that I'm very optimistic that we will see widespread implementation is that if we're able to do this, it benefits all of us. It doesn't just benefit pharma. It doesn't just benefit CROs. It benefits everyone. So everyone, I think, has kind of a horse in this game. And so just to kind of go through this briefly, and I've touched on some of these, but from a health authority perspective, perhaps those farm tox reviewers are going to be able to, evaluate, an IND more quickly. It's going to allow them to compare to other protocols much more easily. Again, thinking about data standards and just being consistent. So, again, it's going to make their lives easier. CROs, I mentioned, the potential effects on quality. I certainly think that's going to be a big benefit. The other thing from a CRO perspective, some of the feedback we received was that CROs will sometimes maintain style guides for various sponsors. And so you can imagine, how inefficient it is for them when, they may have these, 25 or 50-page style guides for a protocol for each sponsor that they work with. And every time they write a protocol for a particular sponsor, they have to, sort of consult that style guide and really kind of take their format and sort of morph it into the one that sponsor has requested. Think how much more efficient it would be if there was just one protocol that they could use. And then, from a pharma perspective, if CROs are able to be more efficient, can we get our studies going more quickly? So again, there's a benefit for all there. From sponsors, again, we have an opportunity. Many of us, probably have multiple templates that we use on a day-to-day basis. And so does this initiative allow us to condense those? And so we don't have to, have some of that infrastructure that we use to keep up with those protocols, the constant updating and the constant maintaining those. As I've mentioned, we think this is really going to drive quality and reduce errors, which is, for me, one of the key initiatives that we're trying to enable here. And the potential for automation, I mentioned that before. Again, from a technology vendor standpoint, again, the standardization allows, the customer expectations. They know what the customers are going to expect. And then from a standard bodies and users, this really allows or facilitates the creation of an ecosystem. And so, one of the things we've thought of, and Kelsey mentioned, we also have a companion effort for send harmonization. And so you can sort of think about if we sort of have a common way that we apply send standards that feeds into a common protocol, that feeds into a common report, then you really have, this environment where, information can flow much more easily. And so then you are getting to a place where maybe you can start to automate a variety of different processes. And so again, we think that this is an important first step, but it is just a first step. And so with that, I'm going to pause and we're going to do a couple of poll questions here. So the first poll question we had, how many non-clinical protocol templates does your company use? So if everyone could just select one, and again, for context here, answer, an answer is going to be different for a CRO than it might be for a pharma company, but we're just kind of interested to see what the diversity is out there. So I'll pause it a little bit here while everyone is voting.
Thanks, everyone. It looks like about 65% of the folks on the phone have voted already, and now we're up to about 70. So we'll go ahead and give it a few more seconds, and then we'll close it. And I'll go ahead and share the results. And this is based on 72% of the folks on the phone who voted.
So again, as I look at this, I mean, 43% of you, have 6 or more different templates that you maintain. So, think about, just the, I mean, I know at the company I work for, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into maintaining any document, right? There's yearly updates, sort of validation. There's infrastructure involved with that. So anything we can do to minimize that, I think is really going to be helpful. I'm actually a little bit surprised by the number of people that have 6 or more. So, again, I think that just validates that, we're on the right track with trying to condense this down. So the next question we had, Gloria, if you could go to the next one. So for this question, we wanted to know what do you find problematic about using multiple protocol templates? And so this can be from the perspective of the CRO or from a sponsor. And we want you to select all that apply. And so, the problems we've identified with this are, again, some of the process or time inefficiencies, quality issues, maybe when things get missed because someone's used to looking at something in a different portion of the protocol, challenges with review or interpretation of studies, and then also whether this makes generating the SEND data set more challenging, and then others. So maybe something we didn't think about here. So if you could go ahead and vote on this one as well, please.
Thanks, everyone. We're up to about 55% of the folks on the phone have voted so far, so we'll go ahead and leave that open for a few more seconds. And again, you can select all that apply here. All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and close it. We're up to about 69% of the folks on the phone voted, so thank you for your participation.
So again, the majority cited process or time inefficiencies as the main, issue with supporting these multiple templates. And then I think a close second there would be the inconsistent review or interpretation of studies. So again, I think that this really, this feedback you guys are providing is really validating, one of the reasons why we're doing this. And so, I hope as we go through this, note that we're going to talk about how you all can be involved in this at the end. And so I do hope that you all do want to get involved with this and provide additional feedback. But with that, I'm going to turn this over to Gene Schultz. He's another team member on this initiative, and he's going to talk about the scope of this template that we've been generating and what types of design principles we've been using as we came up with this version 0.1. So, Gene, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Todd. And good morning, everyone. If we could go to the next slide. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the protocol template that we have developed and some of the things that we focused on and the guiding principles that led us to where we are today. Can we have the next slide, please? I'm stuck on the poll here.
Yeah, I apologize. I've clicked it a couple times. Hold on. Let me unshare my screen and share again. I'm not sure what's happening.
There we go.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, as Todd described, we decided to focus on general toxicology studies, in particular those IND-enabling studies, which are typically a 28-day repeat dose tox study. The current protocol is adaptable to multiple species, which would be needed to support an IND-enabling package, and that would include rodents, dogs, and monkeys. The protocol that we have available for your review is the current version is version 0.1. It's really a draft. It's a work in progress copy that we've made available for public comment, and we're showing that to you today. And future versions, which will take your feedback and be incorporated, and probably be version 1.0, will be available in the near future for voluntary adoption. And we'll consider additional versions of version 2.0, for example, as the external environment changes, whether there's changes in regulations or GLP guidances or additional feedback that we receive. We'll be glad to modernize and give a future version in the future. Next slide, please. So what were the guiding principles that we utilized in developing the current protocol template? And I'm just really going to walk across this clockwise and first talk about the purpose. Again, we designed this protocol template with the end user in mind. We wanted to make it easier for the lab technicians to reduce errors and be more efficient in their jobs. We wanted to simplify sponsor and CRO expectations and focus on efficiencies and quality in executing the conduct of the study. And lastly, we decided to eliminate context that was really better suited for inclusion elsewhere in other supporting documents or in the contract, for example. And we wanted to enable flexibility across stakeholders, across CROs and sponsors and regulatory agencies, as Todd had referred to, as well as across geographies. We really wanted to minimize the need for major customizations of the protocol template while allowing for its evolution based on the needs of the study. We also wanted to enable linkages to future templates, such as the report model document that Todd referred to, as well as available data standards such as SEND. In our process, we wanted to be prescriptive where we thought it counted. By that, I mean we included suggested text for common routine procedures where applicable, while at the same time we wanted to allow flexibility, and we avoided process instructions where large variations and preferences existed. And we wanted to lastly, we wanted to embrace the concept of a living document, a living protocol. When we issue a protocol amendment, we envision that the entire protocol would be reissued in its entirety and not just a one-page amendment to the protocol, so that it's a living document. And then the protocol structure, we really focused on the layout and format. We used consistent terminology throughout. And we ordered the sections intentionally for ease and reference and navigation, again, with the end user in mind. And lastly, we followed the ECTD format, and we chose to utilize the OECD GLPs as our baseline regulatory standard. And the reason we did that is we did that intentionally. And the reason we did was the OECD GLPs are really the most up-to-date and comprehensive of the GLPs out there, and they specifically speak to multi-site toxicology studies, which are routinely done in the pharmaceutical industry. And so we intentionally decided to use the OECD GLPs as our baseline. If we can go to the next slide, I'm just going to cover the common key elements of the protocol template, which you'll be able to review. First, focusing on those in blue, these are the sections that are intentionally intended to be included in the approved protocol or study plan. And they include the cover page, table of contents, review of the individual sections, references, approval pages for both the study director, site management, as well as the sponsor, and appendices. And then those items that are listed in orange are template references only. They're not intended to be included in the final protocol. and they really provide instructional text to the author of the protocol or supplemental information on species-specific items that need to be selected and included in the final protocol. So that's I've reviewed the design principles which we utilized in putting this together, and these are the key elements of the protocol template. And so we'd like to pause now and poll the audience regarding one of the basic decisions that we made, and that was having to do with utilizing the OECD GLPs as our baseline. And we would really like to get some feedback from you, the audience, on what you thought of that decision. I mean, do you agree with the decision for using the OECD GLPs or not? So we'll pause here while you answer that question for us. 88% of you agree that that utilizing the OECD GLPs is a general good idea. So I appreciate that. That's very reassuring. And we had one additional poll that we wanted to ask the audience, and that really had to do with SIND information. And the question that we have is, how should SIND information be included in the protocol template? And we were asking this question because we had some differences of opinion within our team. And so should there be a separate section within the protocol that identify the key variables for SIND? Or should it just be included throughout the protocol template in the relevant sections as needed? Or lastly, should SIND details not be included in the template, in the protocol at all, but in some supporting document? So we would really like to get your input on that question.
So for folks on the call, if you could just use the questions panel to ask any questions and or respond to this poll.
The answer is separate identifying section. It looks like we're pretty evenly split on all three. So thank you very much. We will definitely appreciate your feedback and look for additional feedback as you review the protocol template and have additional time to ask questions.
I would just add, Gene, that kind of mirrors the team discussion we had as well.
Exactly. There are differences of opinion.
That's right.
And so at this point, I'd like to hand it back to Kelsey, who can tell you how you can get involved in our initiative.
All right. Thank you, Gene. Appreciate it. So we can advance to the next slide here. I do want to make everyone aware that as of today, everyone can go to the BioCelerate website. We've provided the URL here and actually navigate to the initiative page for Common Template. You'll find there a downloadable file in Word format that allows you to view and work with the draft version of the protocol template as it is today. Again, this is version 0.1, meaning that we do expect to receive a pretty substantial amount of feedback from the public on this and really welcome a variety of stakeholders to take a look at the template, determine areas that you think can be improved or specific areas that you particularly like that you think are valuable. All feedback is welcome. And what we've done is on the website, we've included a web-based feedback form. If you have between 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, if you'd like to spend more time on it, you do have the option of responding to a basic 10-question survey, both multiple choice and free text optional responses, to give us your feedback. That said, for those who are interested in providing more detailed feedback, and this may apply to those who work at an organization that maybe would like to provide a set of consolidated feedback on behalf of your organization, you do have the option of downloading an Excel-based worksheet that allows you to complete that feedback offline. So this is similar to what you may see in other forums where manuscripts or other documents are published, and you can provide line-by-line feedback. We will give everyone that option as well. So if you navigate to a website today, you'll be able to see both of those feedback options available as of today. Next slide. So how will we work with feedback from the public? So the public comment period, again, is starting today. We do expect this to run through about middle of May. We wanted to provide everyone a substantial amount of time to take a look at the template, give us your feedback, give us your thoughts. And we do plan on then consolidating a log of all of the feedback that we get during this public comment period to agree upon substantial updates to version 1.0. And that next release of version 1.0 would then be the version that's meant to be adopted on a voluntary basis and ready for use within organizations. We are also considering additional methods of consultation. So we will consider similar forums such as this webinar type format, but one that may allow more two-way exchange of ideas and feedback that we can get additional clarification on some of the comments made. And then, as I mentioned, version 1.0 is meant for adoption later in 2019, and we will continue to consider additional feedback that comes in afterward, as Jean mentioned, in future releases such as version 2.0. Okay, next slide, please. So at this time, now that we've taken the group through the background of the initiative, some of the thinking that went into the design of the template, and also some of the next steps that we're requesting all stakeholders get involved in, I'd like to take the opportunity to give folks on the call a chance to type in some questions for our presenters. So if you have any particular questions on what we've discussed today, or overall questions on the initiative or BioCelerate, please feel free to use the questions panel on your GoToWebinar screen to type in those questions. And I'll give it about a minute before we get started. And I see just one question that we did actually get submitted to us prior to the webinar starting was a question related to communication flow that has been developed so that industry, toxicologists, CROs can provide input to us to further develop the template for global use. So I can take that question, just given we walked through the next steps just now. Just a little bit more detail. Todd mentioned that we did start developing this template using a feedback from a sampling of CROs from various geographic locations and various sizes, as well as obviously some of the industry feedback that we gathered from the 5 companies involved in BioCelerate. So this is what helped us draft the initial form of the template, but we are very open to additional forms of consultation during this public comment period. So in addition to the feedback submitted through the website, we will also be considering, as I mentioned, additional forums for two-way exchange, live forums that enable us to answer questions and address feedback, and more of a two-way dialogue.
And Kelsey, I guess the only thing I would add to that is, if anyone, feel free to reach out directly to, myself or Jean as well. And we can certainly, put you in contact with the appropriate BioCelerate people. So yeah, we very much value any feedback we can get, because we understand that, this effort will not be a success unless everyone buys into it. And so we want to make this, as open to everyone as possible.
Okay, I see another question has come in. What is the plan for rolling this out for other study types, e.g. gene tox, DART, etc.? Todd or Jean, would you like to take that one?
Sure. I mean, I can start, Gene. You can correct whatever I get wrong. But essentially, we are a small group. I think we've been able to accomplish, quite a bit in a short amount of time. We didn't really get into it on this phone call, but we really started this work to develop this protocol to get to the 0.1 version, roughly at about, we've been going for, a little under a year, I guess I would say at this point. So, I think we prioritize 28-day studies. Again, if this goes well, and it has thus far, we will branch out into other study types. And that is part of our sort of a long-term plan. But again, we just have only so many resources that we can all sort of dedicate to this. And so I guess I would say, if this is a success, stay tuned and get involved, because the more people that get involved with this, the easier it will be for us to maintain that momentum to come out with, common protocol and report templates for other types of studies.
Right, I would agree with that, Todd. That we the IND enabling work is kind of where we have been focusing, and with the idea of we want to get into patients as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, and that's where we've focused our efforts. And as this progresses, I think we can expand it in the future, but we don't have any clear plans at the moment.
All right, thank you both. We have another question here that I can answer about sharing the slides used in today's presentation and any information on the overall initiatives or goals of the group. We do plan on sharing a recording of this webinar within the next several days after we've completed both sessions today. So that's something that we can make available to everyone who has registered via email, and also plan to make this available on the website as well in the coming weeks. Okay, we also have another question on, will you be looking at template reports and CTD tables in the future? Todd or Jean?
The short answer is yes. I think that's the next genesis after the protocol template is really the report template. So that is on our agenda. I don't know that we have a timeline for that yet, but that will be the next item that we will be tackling.
And again, I mean, we haven't done the detailed planning, but as Kelsey suggested, our work plan is to deliver a version 1.0 later in 2019. Just maybe something for people to think about. We do have some tentative plans to hopefully have at least a poster session on this at the ACT meeting this year. And then once we deliver version 1.0 of the protocol template, we would turn our attention to the report template. And again, so that'll kind of follow, sort of into, the following year.
All right, thank you. We also have a question on, will any effort be made to consider a template on vendor qualification expectations in the future? This is an interesting question because I know we have dabbled in this a bit on the TransCelerate side of the portfolio on the clinical side, but in different ways. Todd or Jean, what are your thoughts?
So that's an interesting question. We actually, Kelsey, I think, and this was maybe even before you were involved, we'd actually considered this as one of the work streams for this non-clinical study optimization. I think at this point, I can say that we don't have any specific plans to do that, but certainly, if we have, companies that are interested in this and they, want to get involved in BioCelerate and sort of champion that, I think that's something that would be a possibility, because it is something we have discussed specifically as it pertains to the non-clinical space.
All right, thank you, Todd. And the next question here, I can get this started for us, but would love to hear from both Todd and Jean on this. What are the plans for longer-term template maintenance, assuming all goes well and more templates are rolled out? Is that part of the BioCelerate plan? So I'll just start by saying that with each BioCelerate initiative, what we like to do from the very beginning is think about what is the long-term roadmap for value and value realization. And so certainly as part of this initiative, one thing that we would like to do as we roll out this template today is start to consider what are the criteria or the triggers that would cause us to want to update the template in an ongoing maintenance mode. So understanding what those criteria or triggers are, having sort of a collaborative consensus on what that would be is certainly part of the plan and part of what we'd like to gather input on during this public comment period. But beyond that, Todd, Jean, any additional thoughts?
So, I guess that's a really good question. It's something that we have thought about. I don't know that we have a really detailed answer at this point. What I can say is, BioCelerate, TransCelerate is not meant to be a standard setting organization. That's not what they're interested in doing at all. It's not their purview. So our intent, at least with this initial version, is to make this, an open source protocol. Now, would there be an opportunity to, if this gains traction across the industry, would there be an opportunity for some type of a standard setting organization that is what they do, to kind of take this over? I certainly think that, that's a conversation that we could have. But, as far as, long term, would BioCelerate be the owner of this? I think the answer is probably no.
Thank you, Todd. And I actually have a comment here, would love to help, so thank you. We definitely would very much encourage your help and everyone on the call getting involved. Does anyone have any additional questions that they'd like to type in? Okay, I see no other questions coming in for now, but I appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today. This has been exciting for us to be able to roll out the template for the first time. Again, we really encourage everyone to visit the website, take a look at the template, and please provide us with your feedback because that's really the only way and the best way that we can further improve the template and make sure it's fit for use for all the stakeholders involved in this process. So again, thank you for your time today. And if there are no further questions, Gloria, I think we can close out a little bit earlier.
Yes, I will be closing it out, and I'll be posting the recording with the PDF of the slides, and we'll also maybe send the link out to where the form resides in the website. We'll send that out to everyone who registered for today's session. So thank you again for your time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.